Hey guys, this is Melissa Bachman. Are you ready to stop spooking deer before it's even time to hunt them? Then you need the new Flex S Dark cellular trail camera from SpyPoint. With a no-glow flash option, long-lasting solar power, and a ton of settings that can be changed anytime through the SpyPoint app, there are no more excuses for letting your deer get wise before the season even starts. So check it out for yourself and see why the SpyPoint Flex S Dark is the unstoppable and undetectable scouting tool you need for your next hunt.
At Midway USA, we put customers first. The Nitro Express shipping system is icing on the cake. It was a big investment of time and money to take super fast, low-cost shipping to a whole new level. The Nitro Express helps ensure same-day shipping and low shipping costs. We hope you enjoy the Nitro Express. We built it just for you. For just about everything for the outdoors, go to MidwayUSA.com.
I'm Larry Potterfield with Midway USA. Thanks for your business.
Welcome to our new podcast series focused on hunting, cooking, and eating invasive species. Across North America and beyond, invasive animals are wreaking havoc on native ecosystems, displacing local species, damaging habitat, and altering the natural balance. But what if part of the solution lies on our plates? In this episode, we're diving into the scaly, the slimy, and the surprisingly delicious world of invasive reptiles and amphibians. From green iguanas lounging in Florida trees to massive pythons in the Everglades, bullfrogs croaking on western wetlands, and red-eared slider turtles colonizing ponds across the country. We'll explore how these creatures got here, why they're problematic, legal and ethical methods for harvesting them, and of course, how to turn them into sustainable meals. Whether you're an angler, hunter, forager, foodie, or just curious about invasive species, this episode is packed with insights, cooking tips, and field stories. Grab a drink, grab a seat, and listen up.
Join Justin Townsend and the Harvesting Nature crew as they explore the world of cooking wild fish and game while sharing recipes, tips, tricks, and lessons learned from their pursuit of wild food. We sure hope you ate before the show, 'cause you're gonna leave hungry. This is the Wild Fish and Game Podcast.
In our last episode of this series, we spoke about the invasive mammals like aoudad, wild pig, European hare, nutria, and even feral horse, which could be slightly controversial, but we talked about it anyway, because it needs to be talked about. I think the first way to start solving a problem is admit it's in fact a problem, and so we did just that. But today we're going to be discussing the invasive reptiles and amphibians. So as mentioned in the intro, this includes iguanas, pythons, bullfrogs, and certain types of turtles. We will dive deep into a lot about each one, hitting on the conservation, some cooking, and whether or not they're even edible. And it's funny because a lot of folks don't even think about it, versus there are definitely a select few around the world and the nation that readily consume amphibians and reptiles. But I know most of the folks that I know will turn their nose up at the thought of eating something with scales or bumpy skin out of either one of those types of animals. But, Adam, let's start with a little bit of history in the iguanas.
Yeah, starting out with iguanas, which, I'm not one of those people who turn my nose up at amphibians and reptiles. I've been really itching to get down to Florida to hunt iguanas. I was down there a few years ago now, and I never got the chance, and I've just been really wanting to do it. And I really like to do it partially because I want to try the meat, but partially because they're so damn invasive. They become a significant issue, particularly in Florida and some parts of the southern states as well. The most common species is the green iguana, which is Latin is iguana, which is always my favorite when Aladdin just repeats itself. It's native to Central and South America. These guys can reach over 5 feet in length and weigh up to 20 pounds. So that's a fair amount of meat if you get a big one. Most of them are a bit smaller than that, though. There's a couple other species as well. The black spiny-tailed iguana, which is a Tenosaura similis. Smaller, a little more aggressive, known for its burrowing behavior and kind of fast clawing movements. And a third species, the Mexican spiny-tailed iguana, which is Tenosaura pectinata, has also been observed, but in much more limited numbers, so people aren't running into those too often. It's really the green iguana that's a problem. All these iguanas were introduced primarily through the exotic pet trade, starting in the 1960s and 70s. A lot of them escaped or were intentionally released by owners who could no longer care for them, which is often the case. They get bigger and more aggressive than you think they ever will, and you just go and let them outside, which is kind of an a-hole move, I would say. Florida, especially in a place like Florida, which has a warm, humid climate, which provides ideal conditions for these iguanas to thrive and reproduce rapidly. Over time, they've established wild breeding populations, particularly in South Florida, where they now number in the tens of thousands. So there are a lot of iguanas. They're problematic, and they're problematic for several reasons. First of all, they damage landscaping gardens. They dig extensive burrows that can undermine sidewalk stories, seawalls, and foundations, and actually cause them to fully crumble. They also compete with native species for food and habitat. Their droppings spread salmonella and other pathogens, and in agricultural areas, they can really devastate crops. So they can just come in and wipe out crops. They've even caused power outages by climbing onto transformers and power lines and getting zapped. But I guess you get a nicely cooked iguana out of that situation. You won't need the stove to cook it. Due to their invasive status, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, also known as FWC, encourages removal of green iguanas from private property. So they're asking people to take care of themselves. This means that it's legal to humanely kill iguanas year-round without a permit on your own property and on public lands managed by the FWC and certain counties as well. So make sure you look it up, call your local guys, check in, see if you're allowed. But it seems to be pretty open year-round in terms of as far as it's humanely killing them. Methods of hunting often include air rifles, blowguns, and even gigging or trapping. I've heard of fishing rods with noose loops on them. There's been a few different cool things you can do. Night hunts using lights or thermal imaging are very effective as iguanas sleep in trees and then can be more easily approached. They won't run away on you. Hunting invasive iguanas offers a way to control their populations and also provides a lean, sustainable meat source. Iguana meat is high in protein, often referred to as chicken of the trees because of it's kind of a little reminiscent of chicken meat. Ethical hunting and proper handling are crucial, and many Floridians now participate in organized removal efforts to help reduce the environmental impact of these reptiles. So there's kind of groups that will form and go out and hunt them. I have not, as I mentioned, eaten an iguana, but Justin, you've eaten iguana a couple times. What do you think about it?
So I like it. I've had it several times. I lived down in South Florida for a while, and as you mentioned, they're everywhere. There's definitely some theories floating around about kind of how they got there. There's definitely the pet release theory that's pretty prominent, but then there's also theories around just sort of like natural movement of the species, and that's part of that's because they're native to many other parts of the Caribbean and the Mexico as well. So there's some thoughts that say, there was a major storm, they drifted over. There's, they came over, in boxes of fruit or whatever, shipping, which is a way that surprisingly we get a large amount of invasive species, both plants and animals, is just through shipping into Florida. And how it was explained to me, it's very simple, and it happens very frequently. Say you're like a captain of a ship and you've got a flower in your stateroom on the ship, and you pull into port and you open your window and your last stop was like somewhere in South America, and there was this bug that climbed in and was living on your plant, and now it flies out the window and it lands in Florida, and so goes so goes the population with it as well. So very easily, I think, fire ants came over that way. There's lots of different theories as to how the iguana arrived here. I think the pet release one's a good one. I think that's probably more applicable to the python, but definitely plausible, and probably didn't help the population, or it helped the population if you're the iguana.
It helped it proliferate.
Yeah. But I think the first time I ever had iguana wasn't in Florida. It was actually in Bonaire, down in the Caribbean. And so that's part of what they loosely refer to as the Dutch Caribbean. So you have Aruba, Bonaire, and Curacao as former Dutch colonies, I guess Dutch protectorates now. And so I was down there for work and was traveling around the island of Bonaire, and we stopped in a local restaurant kind of on the far side of the island off the beaten path, and had some iguana soup, which was just prepared in a tomato-based soup with onions and some chunked up tomatoes and garlic and a bit of spices. And they actually used just the tail meat, which they cut kind of into chunks, and then you ate the meat off the bone of the tail. And actually there they said they have a different iguana than is in Florida. It's a darker colored iguana, the black iguana versus the green iguana you see, and they only really prefer to eat the tail meat, and not of big huge ones, but of like medium-sized iguanas. So that was an interesting contrast. And then later on in Florida, having iguana tacos and a number of iguana dishes throughout my life. I think the flavor is really cool. It's definitely got a contrast of kind of lighter meat, darker meat, but it's all edible. It's all, you can cook it. It's very mild and clean tasting. It definitely is reminiscent of closer, I'd say, rabbit, probably closer to frog, which we'll talk about here in just a little bit. And because of the way it's kind of flaky and shreds like chicken or rabbit, it'll hold a marinade really well. But most of the way that I've seen it prepared is to have it like pre-cooked and then kind of reheated again in a sauce or something, which also helps hold it really, really well. But the most challenging part is probably skinning it and kind of peeling off the hide, because it definitely adheres kind of very firmly. It's not like a mammal hide where it's easier to pull off. It's a little more challenging. You do have to have concerns about salmonella with iguana, just based on kind of where they live and what their diet is and all those weird things. So you want to make sure you cook it thoroughly. You want to make sure that you're careful handling it and stuff like that. But definitely, if anything, if you're going to pre-cook it, you can steam or boil it to tenderize, especially for the older ones. You can also grill chunks of it after marinating. You can fry pieces of it if you want to have a big enough piece. You can cut it off the bone, or take, the legs after they're cleaned and remove the skin and fry them, sort of like chicken wings. You can also slow cook it till it's fall apart. I think it's just very similar to like the rabbit in that aspect of like you can cook whole quarters or chunks or backstrap. Obviously, you're not going to be cooking rabbit tails, but you can certainly cook iguana tails.
Do iguana saddle.
Yeah, a little iguana saddle. Fancy it up a bit. There are definitely a lot of popular iguana-based dishes around the world. I think definitely Latin American style, as I mentioned, with the tomato, the garlic, the onion. There's some curry, grilled iguana tacos, shredded iguana tacos. There's one on our website that discusses a coconut one that Dustin wrote. I was actually there for that and ate that one. That was pretty tasty. It's a good go-to for it. And ironically enough, we have a iguana taco T-shirt on the Harvesting Nature website, which part of that, those proceeds, as all our shirts are, that we'll talk about a couple today, are donated to different conservation organizations that are supporting efforts either to support the habitat that these invasive species are damaging, or to support, targeting the species specifically. So, lots of stuff you can do. Ooh, I just saw iguana tamales, and that sounds super fun because you can pre-cook that in a fun sauce and then make some tamales with it, which would be really good. But I don't know, Adam. If now having that in your back pocket, I can see your wheels are turning as far as what you would do with an iguana. What do you think you would do?
Well, I think the first time trying it, usually I do something simple, just to get the sense of the meat and everything. So something like a braise with some salt and pepper, just to kind of try it. But often I would go to where, like looking into cultures who eat lizards. So, Central American, Mexican, maybe Caribbean. Maybe there's stuff in South Asia or different places where lizards exist that could be similar to iguanas. Because people have been cooking them for, hundreds of thousands of years. And I think that's where you look for that wisdom. But when you were talking about it, I just remembered watching the show. I can't remember the name of the guy, but he was like, kind of like, who was the crocodile guy in Australia that got killed by
Steve Irwin?
Steve Irwin.
He
wasn't Steve Irwin, but he was a show had much like it. He walked around barefoot all the time. Can't remember this guy's name, but he was awesome. But
Jeff Corwin?
Maybe.
Was he Australian?
He was Australian, very much so. But he'd hang out with the Aborigine groups, and they showed this one episode where they just had this like coal fire going, where the fire kind of dwindled down to the coals, and he caught this big lizard, and they just threw it right in the coals and let it cook, and then they just like peeled the skin off with like a dull knife or a spoon or something, and then just ate it like that. And that's a memory of my childhood watching this and thinking that was so cool. So I might have to try an iguana like that one day.
I'm trying to look it up. I'm trying to retrace your steps here.
It's like a barefoot Australian guy with a big black beard.
Rob Bredel.
Yeah, that's him. Yeah.
There you go. We've rediscovered your childhood.
Yeah.
I think it's on YouTube if you want to go watch it.
I'll check that out again. Nostalgia.
Want to plan your next fishing trip without the hassle? FishingBooker.com is the best way to find and book a fishing charter anywhere in the world. Whether you're chasing trophy fish or just looking for a family day on the water, Fishing Booker makes it simple, fast, and secure. With thousands of experienced guides, verified reviews, and 24/7 customer support, Fishing Booker takes the guesswork out of planning. Visit FishingBooker.com and book your trip today. Fishing Booker. Fishing trips made easy.
For almost 50 years, Midway USA has been America's go-to source for just about everything for shooting, hunting, and the outdoors. Go to MidwayUSA.com to see our latest deals and promotions and take advantage of our super fast same-day shipping. If you need a cooler, a new fishing rod, another rifle, ammo, or a reloading press, you can find it all at MidwayUSA.com. Thanks for your business.
So, let's change it up here a little bit. Have you ever eaten snake?
I have. Talking about Australians. Yeah, I was going to say, talking about Australians, I don't know how many snakes I'm eating over there. But all I've ever tried is rattlesnake. I've never tried python before or any other snakes. But I like the rattlesnake. It was tasty.
Yeah, same for me. Only rattlesnake.
Yeah.
But Burmese python, huge problem, right?
Yeah, huge problem and a huge snake, which is part of its issue. So the Burmese python or Python vivatus, I'm just butchering all this Latin. Got to go back to Latin school. It's one of the most. It's one of the most notorious invasive species in the United States. It's gotten a lot of media attention recently. It's found particularly in southern Florida, where it's established a stronghold in the Everglades, which is very similar to where they come from in Southeast Asia or Burma. Myanmar, it's also known as. It's like a constrictor snake. It can grow to over 20 feet long and weigh more than 200 pounds. So it's like weighs more than a lot of people, which is crazy. I can't even imagine running into one that big. That'd be nuts. Its preferred habitats include marshes, swamps, and tropical forests, which I will stay out of unless I'm hunting it, I guess. Burmese pythons were first introduced to Florida through the exotic pet trade once again in the 70s and 80s. Many were released or escaped into the wild, and by the early 2000s, wild populations were confirmed, and they've been just reproducing rapidly since then because they're really highly adaptable. They're apex predators with no predation on them, and the females can lay up to 100 eggs at a time, meaning that they can spread fast. They don't have any real natural predators in Florida, maybe a couple, but not enough to lower the population. But they, in turn, have been decimating native wildlife populations, eating everything from rabbits and raccoons, endangered birds, alligators, and even deer. If you can picture a 20-foot long, 200-pound snake, it could probably eat a small deer. They're considered a high priority invasive species by wildlife authorities. Once again, the Florida Fish and Wildlife Conservation Commission, the FWC, and the South Florida Water Management District actively encourage their removal. Hunting is legal year-round on designated public lands, and licensed bounty programs and python challenges in capitals are in place to control numbers. Pythons can be hunted using humane methods such as hand capture, gigging, or using air rifles. However, due to their strength and defensive behavior, you gotta use extreme caution, especially with the big ones, because they can be quite dangerous. So you gotta be pretty adventurous to hunt these guys. Despite the risks involved in hunting, python meat is technically edible, but recent studies have shown that high mercury levels in some specimens can exceed what people should be consuming, so consumption should be limited or avoided altogether, especially by pregnant individuals. Same goes to some of the larger predatory fish that we consume, like some of the sailfish and tuna and whatever. They also have these mercury levels. Proper preparation, the meat can be cooked and eaten, and the skin is highly valued in the leather trade, so they can still be used, but we'll talk a little more about the mercury part and whether or not you should be eating them. But I think you wrote an article, didn't you, back in 2020 about eating python, Justin?
I did, yeah.
Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on it?
So, surprisingly, this article stemmed. There was a post in. There were several articles that went around. So Florida was considering creating a program to promote the consumption and even looking at commercializing the sale of python meat, and they ran into some hiccups where exactly what you said, like the mercury. So back in 2010, there was a study that was done on the actual mercury content of python, and it found it to be large snakes, especially weighing in at 200 pounds, have completely unsafe levels of mercury, and it depends on the age. So the longer the age, the more mercury buildup. And the reason that is because python's native habitat lacks a mercury source, so they don't have a natural ability to disperse mercury. So it just continues to build up over their age. And in this study, they found out that snakes had up to 3.5 parts per million of mercury. And just for perspective, the U.S. EPA recommends eating anything that would have a greater concentration of 0.46. So that's almost, that's almost what? Basically 3.5 times, no, 6.5. Yeah, I can't math, but it's high. There's a big difference there. But despite these staggeringly high numbers, people continue to eat them, and many parts of the python are claimed to be edible, but most hunters continue to eating snakes just once or twice a year. In all actuality, python can be substituted in a variety of dishes that call for pork or chicken. Common preparation methods to steam, braise, or pressure cook them before adding the meat to a recipe. They say the flavor is very similar to alligator meat, as you could imagine, very similar habitats. They're eating probably some of the same things. And then here's a fun fact. The eggs can also be used in baking, which is very interesting. They can be consumed like poultry eggs despite their differences. But if you wanted to use them to eat the meat, you can get mercury testing kits to check for elevated levels of mercury. Although the research conducted revealed no solid correlation between age and accumulation of mercury like in fish, it's interesting to see that this organism kind of consumes, animals that don't have mercury. So, the theory in fish being they eat fish that have mercury, and so therefore it builds up. But if you look at something that just eats marsh rabbit or rat or deer or all these other animals, they don't typically carry mercury. So it's a little head scratching as to where the mercury comes from. And then they revealed that it's very geolocational, so that in some parts of Florida they have lower levels of mercury, whereas in other parts of Florida they have higher parts of mercury, which is really, really interesting. So
I was reading earlier that that farm runoff, there's like this chemical reaction that's happening with farm runoff that's causing mercury levels to be extra high in some places. And because the Everglades is kind of like the collection point for all of the river systems and everything in Florida, that's the place where it's really collecting. That's where the snakes have the highest mercury levels. I was just reading that this morning, but it's interesting to think that because they're not built to withstand that mercury, because they're from somewhere else, it's actually affecting them and not killing them, but it could harm us, unfortunately.
Yeah. And no, it's wild.
Just killed them off.
Yeah. It's and it's very similar to python, or similar to iguana, in the fact that there's like a zone kind of geographically across America. For python it's somewhere in like central Florida. For iguana it kind of varies, but they won't populate north of that just due to the fact that it gets too cold. So that's a very interesting theory as well, to their population, why they haven't expanded northward as much, because they haven't developed the ability to kind of survive the colder winters there. But you can definitely hunt them in all places, as you mentioned. There's tons of guides and stuff like that where you can go out, and if you want to go out on your own, it's very interesting. I've done it a couple times, not successfully, but it's intimidating going to like clomping around the swamp where there's lots of critters there that want to consume you. So I would say if you're going to do it, go hire a guide, go with somebody experienced that knows what they're doing. Don't just venture out to the Everglades on your own. You may in fact become a statistic. But if you do happen to find yourself lucky, you want to skin and gut it immediately after you harvest. Remove that skin, save that. Like Adam mentioned, there's lots of leather use for it. It's recommended for kind of a citrus, either lemon or a saltwater brine, to tenderize and remove any of the off odors that you may find. If you so choose to eat it, you can slow cook it, stew it for tenderness. Pressure cooking breaks down. You want to pick the meat off the bone. You can fry and grill it, and then kind of similar to carp, pull the meat off the bone with your teeth. So here's some suggestions of things that you can do with python. You can make gumbo, maybe some stew, python sausage if you so choose. I'm sure you could pull a recipe out of the venison sausage book and convert it over to python meat.
I think you'd have to put googly eyes on the end of one long sausage, and put googly eyes on the ends if you're going to do that.
A little forked tongue coming out of the roll of sausage. You go with tacos or stir fry, really anything you would substitute probably pork or chicken for in I would say, shredded or chunked form. Keep the skin, the bones and vertebrae. People use them in jewelry and art. Fertilizer, if you save the guts, if you so choose to compost it. But I don't know. Definitely lots to do there.
I think it's something I would. Yeah, I think it's something I would try, but I wouldn't actively fill my freezer with due to the mercury levels, which, by the way, cannot be cooked out of the meat. So if you're thinking, I'll just cook it extra, it just sticks around.
Yeah, it just hangs out there. Similar, very same thing in fish. Like, you got to be careful what, especially pelagic fish and other things you consume on a weekly basis. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I would give it definitely try it, but I don't know if I would make a habit of it.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
This episode is sponsored by Friskies, who would like to tell your cats hi. Now, if that didn't get your cat's attention, there is one thing that always does the trick. Just pour some Friskies crunchy food in the bowl and you'll hear those paws come running. Works every time. With so many Friskies choices, you can always bring your cats running from their secret napping spots. There's always more to explore. See for yourself at friskies.com or visit your local store.
Something that I really love that is less of a concern, but plenty abundant, are American bullfrogs. Let's talk about those for a little bit. So you may not know this, but they're actually invasive where you live, maybe not. Some parts of North America, they're native, and some parts they've grown, which really brings up this great question of what is expansion and what is overpopulation and what is invasiveness. So it's an interesting concept to think about,
especially with climate change, because I think things are going to really be moving around in the next couple of decades. So it'd be interesting to see. It's
going to be very interesting. But the American bullfrog, you think Adam's bad at Latin. Wait till you hear mine. The Lithobates catasibenesus. There we go.
There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Flawless.
It's a large, aggressive amphibian native to the eastern United States, but now considered invasive in many western and international regions, including part of western U.S., Canada, Europe, and Asia. Bullfrogs are highly adaptable and thrive in a variety of freshwater habitats. You can find them in ponds, marshes, lakes, slow-moving rivers, your local park, your puddles outside your house, ditches, drains, and other places. They're known for their loud, distinctive croak. If you go outside in the winter or summer, you can usually locate the nearest body of water based on just the mere sounds of bullfrogs. And they also love Budweiser beer. I remember those commercials. Yeah. The Budweiser. They can grow up to 8 inches in body length with powerful legs capable of leaping great distances. They became invasive primarily due to frog farming, the pet trade, and garden pond ornamentation. So as a side piece for your goldfish in your ponds. So they spread with kind of by accident releases, the lack of natural predators in new environments, and as voracious generalist predators, bullfrogs eat everything from insects and small mammals to birds, reptiles, and other amphibians, including endangered native frogs, lizards, and other things that live in the water. So because they are very predatory and they reproduce highly in very high numbers, this has caused serious ecological disruptions in many areas. The regions where the bullfrogs are invasive, including much of the western U.S., they're legal to hunt, often with no closed season or bag limit. Their common hunting methods include gigging with spear-like tools, which I've done a lot as a kid. That was our summer evening activity, was to go out to the ponds in the back pasture with flashlights and chase the frogs. People hand capture them, go out on boats on the river, and you'd shine a light and you'd get the boat as close as you could to them, and you'd grab them, throw them in a burlap bag. Bow fishing has become popular, and using lights at night, which is they're easier to spot because they reflect differently. And I'll tell you, they reflect differently than a snake eyes, and you can tell by the way in which they set in the water if one is a snake versus a bullfrog, and they move differently in the water too. So there's definitely been times where we've mistakenly chased snakes, and thankfully nobody got bit, versus frogs when we were younger. Yeah, definitely terrifying, especially when you think about the types of snakes that live around water in the southern part of the United States. They're not the friendly kind. No. Always check your local regulations as they vary state by state, but I encourage you, if it's legal, go out, catch some frogs, try them, and report back. Let us know what you think. I'm a huge fan, always have been. Adam, have you eaten frog before?
Oh, lots of times, but I've never caught my own before. I think they might have just been removed from Ontario's legal kind of hunting list, but they were often included with a fishing license that you could catch so many bullfrogs. But they are not invasive here. They're a little endangered, or not, maybe not endangered, but at risk. So I know they've been taking the numbers way down and then maybe removing them altogether in terms of legal hunting. So, but I've eaten lots of frog legs, and I've always really enjoyed them. And they were probably, there's a good chance they're bullfrog legs as they're farmed around the world. But I would love to go hunting. But as a Canadian, like all this like Everglade, tromping around the glades and sticking my hand in the water where the snakes, water moccasins and stuff are, just scares the hell out of me.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with any of that crap. I just got to deal with lots of snow. It's a little less dangerous. Maybe more dangerous, to tell you the truth. Probably more people die from snow than snakes, but...
I've never heard people like, hey, I got to go out and shovel all the snakes off my drive.
Yeah. That sounds like something in Australia again.
Yes.
I would assume that bullfrog, like all frogs, taste pretty similar, unless there's specific strange ones outside of North America. But the flavor profile's mild, slightly sweet, pretty delicate meat. It can be a little muddy at certain times of year if collected wild. It's often kind of compared to a mix between chicken and fish, which is, I think, pretty accurate. The texture is like kind of soft chicken, flavors a little more like light fish. To prepare them, you clean them thoroughly, remove the skin and all the internal organs. The legs are the primary edible portion, so that's usually what you're going to be eating. Some people will the body, but there's not too much meat on it. If you find that they do have a bit of an odor, like a muddy, swampy odor, soaking them in a saltwater brine or buttermilk or whatever, or citrus will improve that. Most people in the States, I would assume, fry frog legs, have breaded, fried. As most like the alligator and all that stuff, it tends to always be fried. In France, obviously, it's a butter and garlic kind of sautéed, which I prefer a little bit more so than the fried. Even fried's tasty, but it just makes everything taste the same. But you could say the same maybe about garlic butter as well. I made some different ones, some curried ones, which are excellent. You could really kind of go any direction with them, and you don't just have to eat the legs whole like chicken wings. You can braise the meat, shred it for stews, soups, whatever, gumbos. You could grill them. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff you could do, but keep it relatively simple because it's pretty delicate flavor, so you don't want to overpower it too much. Yeah, so I never got to hunt frogs, but Justin, you said you had lots of frog hunting stories. Were you out was it just turtle or frogs, or were you out there hunting like turtles or other things as well?
So we would, it really depends. I had an adventurous childhood. So in the summers, we would hunt frogs, and we had a series of ponds that we would go hit at, that we had favorite ponds in the back pastures that carried different types of frogs, and we started to learn like where they'd be, all that, and you could go out and you can quickly scan a pond. Some people call them like stock tanks, but they were like cattle ponds essentially, and some had more vegetation, some had less, and you could go out and find the frogs based on that, if they had lily pads or not or anything. So we also fished those ponds during the day for bass and catfish and perch and sunfish and all the different things, but and then occasionally, I don't think we did it as much there because these were smaller. We'd go to like family friends places that had larger ponds or stuff like that, or the rivers and all that, and we would wade out in the river and we would try to catch turtles as well. Of course, you would catch turtles fishing and stuff like that. We primarily didn't keep the turtles. We would just kind of catch them and let them go. Growing up, there were definitely people that ate the larger like alligator snapping turtles, which were common. They were harder to find, but you would occasionally find people catching them. Snapping turtles a little bit, not as much. People liked soft shell turtles, which were common but didn't occur in frequency. And it was interesting because the snapping turtles or the soft shell carry different types of meat. So like that dark meat, light meat, which I'm sure the others did, but we were all discussing this as kids. And it was, I remember rumored that parts of the soft shell snapping turtle would taste like ham, in which now that I'm like later grown in life and have some culinary chops, I'm like, that's really interesting. And I have not since followed up on that thought since I was young, but definitely lots of thoughts about the consumption of turtles, which I think is good. They're a little harder to clean. They can be a little challenging. People get a little fussy because the fact that they don't have as much meat. It's a lot of effort to clean turtles, but it's definitely a problem. And one of the major problematic turtles are the red-eared slider turtle, which was very common growing up as a kid. Those were the ones you always, if you lived in sort of the central part of North America or the southern part of North America, you would see like their little head poke up all over the fishing ponds, lakes, wherever. They'd be the ones out basking on there, and they're very distinct with their red stripe behind their ears. So the red-eared slider, the Trachomys scripta elegans. There we go. Look at that.
There you go.
I got it. It's a freshwater turtle native to the southern United States, within proximity to the Mississippi River and the Gulf of Mexico, which is kind of the region I grew up in. And they're recognizable by their distinctive red stripe behind each eye. It's a medium-sized turtle, so I've seen them big, but they're definitely more common, smaller, like 6 to 8 inches. And they thrive in a range of aquatic habitats, including ponds, lakes, rivers, marshes, watering holes. They're omnivores. They eat vegetation. They eat insects, small fish, amphibians, fishing lures, all those things they will eat.
Toes.
I've had bait stripped away. It's funny, we talk about hunting, and that was one of the hunting turtles or swimming around for them. That was always one of the biggest fears, is that you would step on one of the alligator snapping turtles because they live down at the bottom, and you get your toe snipped off. And so you're always very conscious of stepping in squishy mud versus like something hard and pointy, which would be the backs of their shells. Always a fear. Is
that a rocker turtle?
Yeah, rocker turtle. Fun game. Does it bite back? But red-eared turtles, they became invasive through the pet trade, where they were widely sold in the 80s and 90s as hatchlings. I remember seeing those in the pet store. Little cute turtle swimming around in the pond, and then they got too large and demanding for casual pet owners, so they were often released, let go, all that, and their adaptability and long lifespan and aggressive behavior, because they like to eat and they don't have few predators. They've got some, but only to a certain size. And then they outcompeted some native turtle species for food, basking space, and nesting areas. And they're now established in every continent except Antarctica. So beyond North America, they have taken over the world. Mm-hmm. What is it? That's the famous Pinky and the Brain. Did you watch that growing up?
Oh yeah.
What's our plan today? Figure out how to take over the world. Well, the red-eared turtle has done it. Yeah. It's in the world's top 100 worst invasive species by the IUCN. And in the United States, hunting and removal of red-eared sliders is generally legal and often encouraged. Check your local regulations as always. They are safe to hunt, but like all wild turtles, be careful to ensure they're not collected from polluted waters due to potential heavy metals or toxic accumulation. Red-eared sliders are also safe to eat, and their meat has a long history of culinary use in traditional Southern Asian cultures. I would say turtles writ large probably do. Specifically, the red-eared turtle, maybe not. Like I mentioned, definitely a consumable species, but maybe not at the top of the list when it comes to turtle consumption. They are kind of small. They've got a little bit of meat, but I think overall you could do it. And I've never done it. Adam, have you ever eaten turtle?
I have not. Something that's been on my list for a long time, and we actually have red-eared sliders all the way up here in Canada. So they're in our lakes. They're in our lake that I live on here. But I've never seen a large one. They've often just been about 6 inch in diameter, kind of look like a little painted turtle. But if I were to catch a large one, checking in on my regulations, which I haven't yet, if legal, I would definitely grab one and consume. I've seen red ear slider turtles for sale in Asian markets, and they're just kind of frozen, backpacked whole turtles. I think they're gutted. I've been tempted to buy some just so I could try it out. But I always like the idea. I don't know where they came from. I always like the idea of getting my own if possible. But yeah, I would love to try it because it's one of those traditional meats that everyone used to eat that no one eats anymore, which kind of tickles my fancy a lot and just seems like interesting different type of meat that I've never tried. So yeah, I'd be super down.
Red ear, they can also carry salmonella.
Yeah, turtles in general, there's just, handling any turtle, you should be definitely washing your hands afterward. Because even just moving, I pick up turtles on the road all the time to move them off the road and keep a little bit of hand sanitizer just for that because it's they can get nasty. So apparently, I've never tried it, but apparently turtle meat, and specifically red ear slider meat, can be relatively mild with a slight fishy taste. Probably depends on the water they're coming from. Textures, once again, like most reptiles and amphibians, somewhere between chicken and fish. They recommend that neck and leg meat are the more tender and flavorful parts of the turtle. I can't imagine there'd be much meat other than neck and leg meat, but maybe there's like a little bit in the middle. To prepare it, you want to clean thoroughly, removing the shell, organs, and any fat. Soak the meat in salt water or vinegar bath to reduce any taste that might exist. Once again, if it's coming from a clean cold water or muddy swamp, it's probably going to make a difference. You can parboil before the final cooking to tenderize it once again. So some cooking methods, you could stew or slow braids, which is common in like turtle soup, which is very common back in the day. It used to be sold in every restaurant. It used to be served on trains.
So I'll tell you, I've had turtle in turtle soup. So in New Orleans, there are restaurants that still serve it pretty regularly, and it's like a tomato-based soup with the turtle flaked in there, very much, and then it's served with like a pour of sherry over the top.
Okay,
it's quite lovely.
Served in the shell, hopefully.
No, in a nice bowl. No, it's not that rustic. Although I guess it could be, but that's typically going to be soft shell turtle that you would have there. So
interesting. See, we have soft shell turtles in Ontario, but they're very endangered, so they're not something.
There's in a lot of places. Blame the red-eared turtle.
Yeah, the damn red-eared sliders.
Yeah, in a lot of places, they are same species of concern or endangered, so it's pretty wild.
Yeah. Other than soup, which was a popular way to eat them before, you could do once again a gumbo. I think a lot of these animals kind of existed down in the Louisiana area, which is why they seem naturally inclined to be in a gumbo.
Mm-hmm.
If the turtle has a bit too much flavor to it, you could do something in like soy sauce or curry. You could stew it. You could always deep fry it. You just want to parboil it first to tenderize it. The shells can be used for crafts or arts. Bones occasionally used in traditional medicine in certain parts of the world. I wouldn't be getting into that too much, but once again, you can compost any remains buried in your garden. Yeah, it's something that I'm definitely down to try, and maybe this year or next year will be my time to shine, whether it's here or elsewhere. I want to try turtles. So
there's a recipe we'll talk about recipes real quick, just off the top of my head. So I already mentioned Dustin's, I think it's coconut and mango iguana tacos that are on the Harvest Nature website as well. But also there's a rattlesnake soup recipe that's on there that lives, that's been there for a while. It's an older recipe I wrote. I need to update the photos. I'll probably do that soon. But it's based off a traditional turtle soup recipe. So if you wanted to recreate it with turtle, that's a good go-to. If you happen to come across some sort of turtle, especially given this time of year, it's still July, so it's still warm. So frogs and turtles are still pretty abundant and out and about. So easy to go, not easy depending on who you are to go capture one, but even iguana or Burmese python as well, though I don't know if you want to be traipsing around the Everglades right now in July, but deer season's coming up in South Florida, so enjoy the mosquitoes.
Yeah. And if anyone has some cool recipes for any of the things we mentioned here, we'd love to see them. So if you'd like to see it, on the Harvesting Nature website and social media, you can email me at editor@harvestingnature.com, or you can just share what your family or your traditional recipes with us on Instagram or email. We'd love to hear how you prepare some of these invasive species. Because, it's something that I haven't gotten into much yet, and just due to my locality more than anything. But I'd love to see more and learn more about it.
Or leave a comment here on Instagram on the posts or on the episode for whatever podcast platform. We'd love to hear your stories. Best story gets a surprise. We'll send you something. But yeah, send us in something. We're excited to hear your stories about reptiles and amphibians. I think writ large, not highly consumed, but I think traditionally highly consumed. It depends on what part of the world you're at, but one of those things in North America has faded over time. I know turtle used to be super popular, which is probably largely why we have a decline in the soft shell species, but it's one of those things that it's another tool in the toolbox if you're looking to feed yourself, if you're looking to do some good for the environment. We mentioned 4 things here that you could just sort of go through and talk about eating, obviously with some caution to each. But I don't know, Adam, what are your overall thoughts for everything we've shared here? It's pretty solid lineup of reptiles and amphibians.
I think we have all these weird taboos in place that make no sense, and reptiles and amphibians are very much edible and should be on your menu. Frog legs are probably the easiest way to get in. You can buy them in restaurants or in the store and then kind of get a sense of what it's like and then go ahead and get your own. I say it's definitely worth doing. And just from our research on this show, stop buying invasive reptiles and amphibians as pets and releasing them.
Oh,
just stop. Yeah, it seems like that's a big issue. Yeah, so maybe don't do that. Eat them instead.
Yeah, when they get too big,
eat your pets. That's my my final closing argument is eat your pets.
I don't think I could say anything beyond that. Thanks everybody for listening to this episode. Whatever podcast platform you're listening to, please punch that 5-star button. Tell us we're doing right, or tell us that you'll never eat your pets. I don't know. Thanks everybody. Have a good night.
From dawn to dusk and every moment in between, Captain Justin Leake and Meredith McCord have an exciting adventure waiting in the water. Catch Chasing the Sun, Sundays at 10 a.m. Eastern on Waypoint TV. Waypoint TV, your destination for outdoor entertainment.